Hi, my name's Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and motivational speaker. Happy 4th of July, America. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you around this little town of Jackson Hole. It's a small town in Wyoming. You may or may not have heard of it. If you're a skier, you've definitely heard of it, and maybe you want to be here, but I'm going to show you what it's like to be here on the 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, America. So this is a special edition. Normally I shoot my videos and I prep them and then I load them in advance so you can get the postings, but today I'm actually going to post directly from the field. I'm going to edit this video on my phone, get it all set, and send it up to you, and that way you can have it and, celebrate your own 4th of July. Wherever you are in America, whether you're in Wyoming, California, Florida, New York, Delaware, Minnesota, Michigan, Mississippi, Texas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Ohio, Alaska, Hawaii, on and on, all 50 states, plus the wonderful territories we have. We are so blessed to have this country. And of course, one of the fun things about the experience is to have this sweet flag. See, that's one of the things about, one of the things that I've traveled around a lot, and people say, what's it like to be an American when you're traveling? And some people say, oh, you shouldn't tell people you're an American because it's really bad. My experience has utterly been that it's zero problem. Most of the time, people are like, hey, yeah, thank you for coming to our country. That's happened in Egypt, Morocco, Guatemala, China, Japan. Just everywhere I've been, and it's a pretty fascinating experience. So, on this, I think it's, I looked it up, everybody's saying it's the 243rd anniversary of the United States. July 4th, 1776. And the Declaration of Independence was signed by the Founding Fathers, including the big old signature by John Hancock. It was written so big that his theory was that I want King George to be able to see my signature, because when those men signed that document, they were literally signing their death warrant, because they were saying, hey, you know what? We're going to break away from England. We're going to sign this Declaration of Independence. But disloyalty to the king at that time was tantamount, or it was equivalent to treason, which of course the only solution to treason is hanging. So those men who signed that Declaration of Independence literally put their lives on the line, their families on the line, their property on the line, because if America, at the time it was not America, it was the United States, or it wasn't even the United States at the time, but the states that were colonies ended up, like, hey, we're going to break away. But not only would those people risking their lives, those men risked their lives, but they would have forfeited their lives of their families and also their property. Because, hey, in treason, at that time, if you committed treason, the king would literally take your property. So take, for instance, Thomas Jefferson, who penned the Declaration of Independence. He had the beautiful Monticello. Later on, after the American Revolution, he built it was at the University of Virginia. He created this huge plantation. Now that's one of the things about the Founding Fathers, and people say, oh, super great, but there were all sorts of problems. Absolutely, each one of those men had their own personal issues. And that is not to say that, hey, all the Founding Fathers, John Hancock, John Adams, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Paul Jones, all those men, did they have their own issues? Absolutely. And that's one of the things we always have to remember, is that even though we revere those men and women, Betsy Ross, hey, I wish we had one of the circle flags here. That would be a pretty cool thing. But, all those men and women literally put their lives on the line for this country. And so those people, it was a huge risk and sacrifice. They knew they had an okay chance, but, if they would have lost the Revolutionary War, if the French didn't help the Americans, this country would not be as it is. There would not be the stripes, the stars, the blue field, the red and white. There wouldn't be anything. We would still be a British colony. Now, come a long time, would that have changed? Who knows? You can armchair quarterback history as much as you want, but what would have happened if the French didn't intervene with the Americans? Oh boy, I don't think that would have gone well. General Lafayette made a huge sacrifice of his life and his country in France, and to come to America and support our war effort to break away from Britain. Now, of course, the United States and Britain are friendly nations nowadays. I mean, I guess we probably spy on each other and things. I don't know the whole story between that. But, the United States and Britain have worked together for 200 plus years. I mean, after the War of 1812, that was basically Revolution 2.0. The British came back to America and said, hey, you know what? We're going to smash your stuff up. I mean, they burned the White House. Was it President? Let's see, I can't remember. Yeah, I'll think of it in a minute. Andrew Jackson fought off the British down in New Orleans, but of course the war was over. I mean, just loads and loads of American history. Now, fast forward to today, some people say, oh, this is the most divisive time in history. This is terrible. Like, look, when you all look around and you'll see these folks piling in here, and there's going to be a parade pretty soon. Just gotta always remember that we're all Americans. Yeah, we have absolutely different perspectives on things, but you have to remember that there is strength in unity. I mean, diversity is all great and all, and it makes you have interesting perspectives and different ways of doing things. But your most valuable power is in the power of unity. It's completely different than the concept of diversity. And I'm not against diversity, I'm not any of that. But when you're unified in a vision and an action, what you're moving forward and working towards, it makes all the difference. As a polar explorer, I was out skiing to the South Pole by myself, and yeah, I mean, that was totally crazy. And people say, hey, that's the most diverse single activity there could possibly be. But I completely counter that, saying that as a polar explorer, how did I get to Union Glacier? How did I get to Patriot Hills? There's an entire crew of people who made that possible. They're working in unison, made it possible for me to reach the South Pole, because I had to have food, supplies, transport, logistics, communications. I mean, it was just an incredible experience to reach that South Pole, see that American flag flying there. I mean, it was totally cool. If you haven't checked that out, I'll see if I can put a link below to my book, Antarctic Tears, Lost at Windy Corner. And if you want to really see what it is like to be the second only American to ever ski alone to the South Pole, you can check out that book. And I was so proud to be able to do that, to get to the South Pole as an American, to be able to see that flag, to see that Amundsen Scott Station down there that the United States has built for research. I mean, wherever you go in America, it's hard to see, or in America, sorry, wherever you go in the world, it is hard to see the point where people aren't interested in what's happening in the United States. When I traveled around, hey, there's a police right there, cool. Thank you, police officers, firefighters, first responders. Well, you make this stuff possible. But I mean, just to see all those people around the world, it's pretty fascinating, because whenever I'm anywhere in the world, whether it's an election year or whatever, people ask me, like, hey, is my hat messed up? Yeah. Well, what's it like to be in America? What do you think about your president? Or a lot of times other people say, hey, what do you think of your prime minister? It's kind of funny. Just by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever else I post this on BitChute, if you're watching this and you think, hey, who's your prime minister? Just by the way, United States does not have a prime minister. We actually have a president. It's a little bit different system. We don't have a parliamentary system of government. We're a representative republic. We are not a direct democracy. We practice democracy, but we are not a direct democracy. And I have to say, thank the Lord on that, because direct democracies always have problems. So that's one of the things people say, oh, this is a complete democracy. It's actually not. It's a representative republic, and because the founding fathers knew that direct democracy, unfortunately, the quote goes, always end in bloodshed. So it's just a nature of, people constantly voting and fighting. You end up with a mob rule, and that's not where you want to be. So America is not actually that. We have 50 states, a bunch of territories, 100 senators, 400, I think it's, oh boy, it's going to be embarrassing, 435 representatives, one president, one vice president, Supreme Court, 3 branches of government, the executive, legislative, and judicial, not that. So sometimes that's a major mistake. But we had a president, our first president, George Washington. He actually was I would say, a reluctant president, although he wanted the job, but he didn't really want to seem like he wanted a job, at least based on his writings and the writings that I've read of other founding fathers. He showed up and he got the job done. But after the second term, and people wanted to say, hey, why don't you keep being president? He said, you know what? I don't want to become president for life because that will become a problem. So like after FDR and those 4 terms during the Great Depression and World War II, after that, people are like, we better actually make that part of the law that a president can only have 2 terms. So you can see my messed up finger here. So all sorts of history and everything that brought July 4th about. By the way, I remember listening to a story about John Adams. Him and John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, actually, the Declaration of Independence was written and drafted and signed on multiple days, and only near the end of their life was reading the book John Adams by, I'll remember his name in a minute, John Adams, and talked about Adams and Jefferson actually had to decide what was the official day. Because back then, it took days, if not weeks or a month, to get documents around. So they decided that July 4th was the day. So there's some argument in history, but ultimately you have to choose a day, and July 4th is it. Thank you very much, America, for watching my channel. Please be patriotic, support your country, say thank you to your first responders, your military, your Coast Guard, your Border Patrol, police officers, FBI, everybody. We may have our disagreements, but ultimately we're all American. Oh, and by the way, I'm standing in the middle of Broadway here because the police have cordoned this off. There's going to be a 4th of July parade that runs down Glenwood, turns right here, and then heads up Broadway. It's one of the most enjoyable experiences of seeing a 4th of July parade. Not every town can put that on, but I'm very blessed to be here in the middle of Jackson Hole, and you can see the sidewalk are lined up with Americans, a few foreign tourists, but definitely a fun experience to be had, because this is like the only time in the summer you can walk out in the middle of Broadway and not worry about getting run over. And after the parade, if you want to come into the Ward Hotel, they've got a 4th of July buffet with all the good fixings here, and guns and pulled pork and dogs and beans, all sorts of good stuff. So it's a great place to come, but as you can see from the crowd here, make sure that you get a seat early, otherwise, boy, you're gonna miss out. It's gonna be standing room only, so this is a real popular place to pop in. Pinky G's also across the street, so there are lots of options after enjoying the 4th of July parade to get some grub. My name is Aaron Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and motivational speaker, professional traveler. Please like and comment on my videos, subscribe to the channel, hit that little subscribe button, leave me a comment, leave some patriotic note. I would love to hear your American story. Thank you very much for watching.